So there was a little dust up you may have seen from Neil Young, who is an iconic rock singer, wanting Joe Rogan pulled from Spotify. And he put an ultimatum. He said, it's either me or it's Rogan. Now, Neil Young has an iconic hit called Rockin' the Free World. And I'm not sure he means the same thing by the word free that I mean, but with all this going on, there's a new version of the song that has come out that I think is going to express probably what it means a little better. Keep on rocking in the free world. And by freedom I mean everybody needs to think like me and do what I say, or we're gonna take you off your social media. And that is liberty. Won't you celebrate with me? I know definitions get confusing. I know they get a little bit confusing, 'cause that sounds kind of like tyranny, but it's liberty. Oh, I'm anti-establishment. I know. You might be saying to yourself that the new version is a little confusing, but I just don't think it's because you're smart enough to get it.
Allow myself to introduce myself.
You see, we don't expect normies like you guys to understand deep philosophies such as,
it is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
That's one small step for man, one giant. I have a dream.
So for all the unenlightened people, basically what we're saying is this: with the lyrics of the new song, with the sentiment of everything that's happened, it basically just means that, sorry, what is that? I smell something. Oh, I know. You Cooper Stuff fans, you think what I smell is poop. It's actually not poop. It's like poop, but mixed with something. Oh, I know what it. I remember now. I remember what it is. It's definitely commies. Cooper Stuff. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Cooper Stuff. We got a lot to talk about today. First, I got a little bit of bad news for Sweden. I don't know if they know it's coming, but I have a feeling it might be. We'll talk about it in 1 second. First of all, here you go. Did you notice the last 2 weeks in a row? What have I done? I delivered on a promise to you guys. Gave you 2 episodes in 1 week. We are keeping it going here, but here's what it means. It means that sometimes I have to film these episodes in not the greatest places. Look at this. I got my Cooper Stuff thing up on a door. Basically, I can make any room artistic. That's basically what we're saying. And you might hear people going back and forth. You might hear people all over the place. But we're doing this because it is so very important right now. Let me tell you why we're ramping Cooper Stuff up. Is it because I just love talking? Maybe. No, we're ramping Cooper Stuff up. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a lot of work. But here's why. We're seeing the turning of the tide, baby. We are seeing the turning of the tide. There are lots and lots of people beginning to wake up, understanding what is happening. I think the church, I tell you, all over, when we're doing these shows, we're meeting with youth pastors, we're talking with people. The church is starting to really see, I think, more and more what is happening and what we need to do to train up young people in the truth of Jesus Christ so that they don't fall into this insane chaos that we're seeing everywhere. The turning of the tide is happening. I believe 2022 is going to be a year where a lot of things are coming to light. So we are ramping this up. We have a job to do. And I'm going to be honest with you, it is a lot of work filming this on the road. I'm not saying that because I'm a victim. I'm not a victim. I'm a victor. Hello? Crushing it, Victor. Are you not entertained? You are. Anyway, so basically we're doing this. We are ramping it up because the turning of the tide is happening and we need to save a generation from this absolute chaos. What's that? You hear that? Those are cases being going by because we're playing a show tonight because we have a lot of work to do. Tons to talk about today. Here's what I'm saying. First thing, Sweden. I got some bad news for Sweden. I wonder if Sweden's going to be getting a call from Neil Young saying, you got to choose between my music and, medical safety. Let's hear. I'm going to read this from the Daily Wire. I think I'm reading all from the Daily Wire today just because I'm busy and it was the easiest thing to pull up. Here we go. Sweden decides not to recommend COVID-19 vax for kids age 5 to 11. Misinformation! disinformation. What's happened? Is Sweden gone crazy right-wing Republican? Let's find Neil Young somewhere is freaking out. He's like, you're either going to choose between my music or health safety. What were they saying? Let's read it. The Swedish government announced Thursday that it would not be recommending COVID-19 vaccines for children aged 5 to 11 because there is not sufficient evidence that the benefits of the jabs outweigh the risk of infection, according to the country's health agency. Why do they want to kill young people? Why does Sweden want to kill young? Why are they trying to kill them? They hate them. I bet they're probably racist too. I bet that's what it is. Let's keep reading. Quote, with the knowledge we have today, with a low risk for serious disease for kids, we don't see any clear benefit with vaccinating them, health agency official Britta Bjornkom said at a news conference on Thursday. As before during the pandemic, children are at a significantly lower risk of developing severe COVID-19 disease compared with adults, the Swedish government added in a press release. Neil Young is not happy right now. He's not happy. Oh my gosh, let's keep reading. In general, the younger the child, the lower the risk. Since the end of October 2021, the Swedish Public Health Agency has been recommending general vaccination against COVID-19 from the age of 12 in Sweden. This is based on the benefit to the individual child. Discussions about the decision have been held with the Pediatricians Association, the School Medical Association, the National Association of School Nurses, the Child Psychiatric Association, the Swedish Society for Infectious Disease, vaccine coordinations with the region, Swedish municipalities and regions, the Medical Products Agency, and the Swedish Medical Council, the government added. That was a lot of talking right there. I'm up for it. It's just that it's a little bit early. Oh my gosh. All right. So we're just going to move on from that. I just thought that was kind of funny. So I'm wondering if Neil Young is going to call Sweden and say, you can either play my music. All right, so we already talked just a little bit about that, but we have to talk about this Neil Young thing. We're going to go back to the Neil Young thing at the end, not to bash on Neil Young, but to talk about a greater philosophy that I think is really worth talking about. It's got tons of practical applications, not just for philosophy. It's got applications for Christians who sometimes feel, hey, we don't need to jump too into this politics stuff, or we don't need to jump too into like all this, the government is doing this and this. That's not really our realm. We're just going to keep that sort of neutral, and we're going to do our thing. We're going to love Jesus in our hearts and that sort of thing. I understand where you're coming from, but there are implications for that if you understand that the other side is not viewing this as like a conversation to be had. The other side is absolutely authoritarian. Yet they claim that we are the authoritarian ones. Now, that is the really interesting thing. So we're going to go back to all of that in just a few minutes. But just talking about some of the authoritarian nature of this before we jump in, let's say this. Canada has done a lot of things that have made me not super, impressed. However, there's something happening in Canada right now that is the sickest thing. It's brought me more joy than probably it should have. And as you probably know, there's this huge line of truckers driving all the way. Basically, they're driving all the way basically from the west side of Canada all the way over to Ottawa. And so the idea behind this is that they are trying to stop the mandates, vaccine mandates and this sort of thing. And so a lot of people know about that already. But their plan basically is they're going to drive over to Ottawa and they're going to kind of surround the, I can't remember, some of the federal buildings, whatever. And they're basically saying, we're not moving until you guys, pull these mandates. Now, Canada has been quite draconian compared to America. However, it's not like they've been more draconian than, say, Australia and New Zealand and Austria and places like that right now. The shocking thing is that they're right above us. And I think that's part of the thing that's freaked a lot of Americans out is, oh my gosh, this is happening really, really close to home. It is. Extremely draconian stuff. As you know, there's been pastors arrested in Canada for holding church services. Pastors arrested for not segregating church service, meaning when they say segregating, we mean people with vaccines and not vaccines. Things like that. It's been really honestly depressing to watch. It's been sad, but it's been also like something we should be paying note to this. This could happen here. So I want to read this just to show you what's going on. So there's this as I said, there's this trucker convoy happening that I personally think is really awesome. So Washington Post puts out something making fun of them. All right, so this is what's happened is that people like us are super excited about this. Yes, there is no reason to have all of these draconian vaccine mandates when everybody knows the majority of people getting COVID now, it is the Omicron variant, and the majority of people getting the Omicron variant right now are vaccinated. That's just the truth. That's just the numbers. It is in no way a pandemic of the unvaccinated, as we've been hearing. And speaking of medical information, that it should be yanked down. How come Neil Young hasn't been asking for the President of the United States to be yanked down for his misinformation, such as it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated? That hasn't been true for a very, very long time. We've known that. Now it's finally coming out for everybody. So the point is, why are you having vaccine mandates when the bulk of the people who have Omicron are actually vaccinated? It clearly makes no sense. This is about something else. This is about government control and government power. Well, the Washington Post thinks they're just going to make fun of it. Let's read this. On Friday, Michael Adder, the political cartoonist for the Washington Post, mocked the freedom convoy of truckers crossing the breadth of Canada and heading for the nation's capital, Ottawa, to protest against Canada's vaccine mandate. Adder created a cartoon of numerous trucks, all labeled in capital letters, fascism, adding the hashtags fascism and supply chain. This is what I'm talking about. What you have are people who support authoritarianism, and anybody that comes against that authoritarianism, they say that's because you're a fascist. You know what? I smell something. You know what it is. Commies. We smell those commies. This is what they do. They basically project whatever they do onto someone else, and they start filling with language, and then they call that thing to you. Let's read this. Roughly 5 hours later, the Post printed an opinion piece attacking the convoy. Of course they did, because all of the institutions in America are all joined together at the hip. This is coming down to the point that I keep trying to make to Christians who feel like you're getting too political. You don't understand. You don't understand what's happening here. Every institution in America is joined at the hip for a leftward authoritarianism movement that is going to become draconian, in some ways already has, stepping into your individual rights. And as soon as you say the word individual rights, they come after you. Even a lot of Christian woke people come after you. Individual rights is our Western ideas of Christianity. I just don't think they understand what they're getting into. But every organization, so now the Washington Post, they're going to come out and make fun of the truckers, right? Let's read this. The Post wrote an opinion piece attacking the convoy. The author, David Moskrup, wrote, "The movement shares an affinity with Trumpist, toxic, authoritarianist politics." This is the amazing thing. We're gonna keep hitting this over and over and over. They say that it is authoritarian to want individual rights. The fact that I don't want the government coming into my house, forcing my kid to have a vaccine, to have a second vaccine, to have a booster. Just recently, Dr. Fauci, the science become flesh himself. Dr. Fauci said, oh yeah, we're going to be doing boosters for everybody under 4 years old. That's going to be happening. The fact that I don't want the government coming in to do that, and you know who agrees with me? A little country called Sweden. Oh my gosh, this is so crazy. The fact that I don't want them doing that and coming into my house, let me say, no, this is my body. That is my child. That is my decision to make. Now I'm the fascist. They're not the authoritarians forcing you to put something in your body. No, they're just, they're the good guys in the story. You see, they're the good guys. I'm the fascist. This is how we twist things over here. Mocking the convoy as a fringe group, Moskrup charged they are driven by a generalized rage, misplaced anger about supply chain challenges, and anti-government sentiment. He played the race card. Of course he did. These people make me sick. These types of groups are typically driven by attitudes, grievances, and priorities of such a nature that they pose a particular risk to racialized folks and other groups that are traditionally the target of hate and violence. All right, this is what these movements do. You see it all the time. They call you the very thing that they are doing, and then they call you a racist, a bigot, a fill-in-the-blank phobe. That's what they do every time. Once again, it's just crazy. Everybody in America knows. All you got to do is go Go look it up on DuckDuckGo. Okay, go look it up. Go just search for it. The percentages of people vaccinated. What you are going to find is that there is a large contingent of people of color in America, namely black people, who do not want to get the vaccine. I understand why they don't want to get the vaccine. I get the reasoning. It makes sense to me. I know that I am a white person, but I still have read history, and I have read times in this country where this country has done horrible things testing in the medical community on black people. Everybody knows that. So there's a large contingency of black people that actually are quite hesitant about the vaccine. I get why they are. I am too. I feel you. I've never told anybody not to get it. I say it every episode because I know I'll say it one time and then somebody's going to tweet it. Cooper stuff was saying, they're going to make me and Joe Rogan, not a bad team to be on, by the way, in terms of this, but they're against the vaccine. I've never said I was against the vaccine. I've never said you shouldn't get it. Never told anybody what to do. I've said it's an issue of conscience, but read the literature. You know what I'm finding is these other people pushing it don't really read anything. We're going to get into that later. I'll save that for the end because that's going to be an important conversation here. But the point is this. There's a large contingency, of people of color in this country that do not want to get the vaccine. I know why that is. But all that they say is if you're against the vaccine, then you're a racist, even though it actually goes against the obvious statistics. This just shows you this isn't about reason. It's not about a reasonable debate. So what I want to say to the woke Christians and young people out there, what I want to say to you, if you're not used to it yet, if you haven't noticed it yet, that's what happens. They don't even mean it when they call you racist. They don't even mean it when they call you fill in the blank phobe. All that it is a battering ram for them to get their way. And they know that they can convince a segment of Christians because we want to be nice people and we don't like being called something. They start calling you names. We're like, it's not true. And it hurts my feelings. It gives me the sads. It makes me sad and I want to be happy. I get it. It's not fun. The first time I was called those names, I didn't like it either. You got to get used to it because they don't even mean it. So it should mean nothing. All right, let's finish this. Musgrove then enunciated the classic tropes of the left. The convoy speaks of threats to liberty. Oh my gosh. Threats of liberty. So the convoy in Canada, they are threatening everybody's liberty by fighting for individual rights. Smell cummies. Don't you smell cummies? This is what they do, man. This stuff makes me really mad because people fall for it. All right. Basically, this author agrees with Neil Young's definition of freedom and liberty. They're threatening my liberty because they don't agree with me. That's exactly what they mean. It would be close to something if the participants weren't so far off. I don't know what that means. Threats to liberty are rampant in Canada, but not because of vaccine mandates. Rather, it is income and wealth inequality, worker exploitation, gendered, religious, racialized, and other forms of hate violence. You see, when they say religious violence, he's not talking about people coming in arresting Christian pastors for having their meetings. He's only talking about the religions that aren't, quote, in the ruling hegemony is the best word for it, but the ruling, and their forms of intersectionality, basically the majority. There you go, majority culture. So if Christianity is viewed as the oppressor and all these neo-Marxists, basically every authoritarian leftist is thinking of a neo-Marxist framework of oppressed and oppressor. It's built on intersectionality, which we've already talked about. The definition of hegemony is basically this. Hegemony is basically just meant to mean the ruling culture. All right, so it is the majority culture. We're going to go back to this at the end, so I'll just say the hegemony thing now so you know what I'm talking about later. All it is that there is a class of a ruling culture. It is the people that are sort of defining the norms. And that is going to be in places in Western civilization. That is going to be Christian. That is going to be white. That is going to be heterosexual. Things like that, right? Two-parent families, yada, yada, yada. It's basically just saying the people that rule the culture because they are the majority, they are basically deciding what is good and true. Now, you got to remember this is in a neo-Marxist framework, so they don't believe in absolute truth. They believe in a sort of relativistic truth. I wrote about this in my book, Awaken Alive to Truth. Go get it on my website, johnlcooper.com. I wrote about this slightly in my book. What they're getting at is this. It is a relative truth. It's not absolute. It's relative. There may be something that's kind of true for now, but it's not true forever and ever. Truth is basically just people's opinions. It is their preferences, and they push it down on other people. So when you have the ruling hegemony, that ruling culture of white, heterosexual, cisgendered Christians or whatever in Western civilization, we are saying things are true, like Jesus Christ is the truth. 2 + 2 = 4. We're saying that those things are true. But what they believe in this neo-Marxist framework is that they're not actually true. They are the hegemony's version of truth, and they are oppressing everyone else under them. They are pushing their opinion down on everybody else to try to make them think it's true. So in other words, it's our opinions, but we are giving it as if it is truth. Now, they would say that is basically Western civilization. That is the patriarchy. That is the product of whiteness on the earth, and this, that, and the other. Those things aren't actually true. They're your opinions. And that's why they always say things like, we need different groups of people's lived experience to bring, basically what they say is they need new truth from another perspective. So not just saying like, hey, it'd be good to get somebody else's input so we can have a broader understanding of the world. That's not what they mean. What they mean is we need a different perspective of someone else that is not white, cisgendered, heterosexual Christian. We need someone else because they have a different version of truth. And they are fighting for that revolution, basically. So that's all that they're saying here. They're not saying, hey, we have a really big problem with religious violence. That's not what they mean. What they mean is it's okay to put the Christians in jail because they're the ruling hegemony. They are the oppressors in the oppressor neo-Marxist worldview. We can throw them in prison. But all those people out there being mean to Muslims, say, they're the bad people. You see what I'm saying? That's what they mean for that. We're going to talk about the hegemony in a little while when we go back to the Neil Young, Joe Rogan conversation. So let's finish this. So he says, it is income and wealth inequality, worker exploitation, gendered, religious, racialized, and other forms of hate violence, ongoing settler colonialism, and other forms of structural marginalization and oppression that compromise liberty. You see, this is what they mean. They don't mean liberty for your individual rights. They mean liberty for a revolution against the ruling hegemony for the ones that are oppressed, for all the other people. And they don't mean they want equality. What they mean is they want your voice, if you're in that ruling class, as I've already said, white, cisgendered, heterosexual, Christian, whatever. They want your voice tamped down. We don't want liberty for you. In fact, you need less liberty so that your oppression will be minimized while the revolution happens for all of the marginalized people, the people that have suffered, the people who have been oppressed, for them now to take over into basically a cultural revolution where all of your, unliberating, what's the right word? All of your restricting Christian sexual norms, all those things will go away. We'll be free from all of those, that Christian sexual repression and your family values and your religion and blah, 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 and your, quote, individual liberties that are actually causing other people to suffer. This is the way that they twist things. So they don't actually mean that we're compromising liberty in the way that most of us have thought of liberty in America for hundreds of years. That's not what they mean. They mean liberty for the marginalized people who are literally living right now, as we speak, in some sort of version of what they would call slavery. They have written it that way, that hyperbolic, some sort of slavery because they are not free to be themselves. That's what basically we're talking about. I'm going to move on. So that's them making fun of the whole Canada thing, which I thought was funny. Let's read one more article before we dig into the other thing I want to talk about. This is funny. I've been talking about Bill Maher like crazy. You got people like Bill Maher, Joe Rogan. There's a lot of these people popping up. It's crazy. They are not right-wing. They are not conservative. They are not Christian. They would be center-left type people, right? I've been trying to put some of them on Cooper stuff in the last 6 months so that people can actually see the things we're talking about on Cooper stuff. This is not crazy right-wing, militia stuff. This is very much in keeping with the principles of liberty in America. That's why you have old school liberals like Bill Maher, and then agreeing with a lot of the things that Cooper stuff is saying a lot of the times. Let's see what he's saying. This is a quote, the quote from the article I'm reading. Liberals have their head up their booties, is what he meant to say. Bill Maher says telling the truth made him a, quote, hero at Fox News. This is hysterical. You know what I think Bill Maher's trying to say? He's trying to say, I smell something. Yep. Comedian Bill Maher claimed Friday that he had become a, quote, hero on Fox News simply because he was willing to tell the truth about the left and the small contingent who've gone mental. Maher noted that those on the far left of the Democratic Party, those who had, as he said, quote, gone mental, were only part of the problem. The other part of the problem was the, quote, large contingent who refused to call them out for it. That is absolutely accurate. That is absolutely accurate. What he's basically saying is this. There's not that many super crazy authoritarian progressive left people that actually want not to just defund the police, dismantle the police. They want to empty out all the prisons, right? They want complete open borders. They really want the American Constitution overthrown for something new that is more like a worldwide technocracy, basically, a worldwide socialist movement that where we are ruled by technocrats. Those are people with this specialized, understanding of medical stuff and technology and big tech, a worldwide surveillance system, and all these things. I know that sounds crazy. That is a real thing. That's a lot of what the Great Reset and whatnot is about. So maybe there's not a ton of those people in the Democratic Party in power, but they're the loudest voices, and the rest of the Democratic Party is never saying we disagree. That's the thing. Defund the police movement, there's only a small group of people in that party that actually want to defund it, literally meaning dismantle it. But all the other ones are kind of like, they're playing around with it. They're playing footsie with it because they know that that's where the juice is at. That's where the power is at. And not only that, in the end, they basically get what they want. What happens is some of the moderate people in the Democratic Party, as we've already seen in the last 3 weeks, as the Build Back Better thing, did not get passed, and specifically how the filibuster, the Democrats were trying to get rid of the filibuster, and there's basically two Democrat senators that held it up, right? You have Manchin and Sinema. Sinema's in Arizona, Manchin's West Virginia. So basically you have these two Democrat the senators that say, no, we're not doing that. So what does the left do? They call them all racist. That's what they do. They've all joined together. Basically, those people are all racist. They are bigots. All that they care about is the white hegemony and yada, 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 right? So nobody wants to be called that. So the minute that the Democrats that are more moderate, the minute they come out and they go against those hyper progressives, well, guess what? Now they are the ones that are going to be booted for being racist and bigots and this and this and this. Why? Because it doesn't mean anything. Nobody means it. They're just faking it. It's all a joke. So this is a quote from Bill Maher. It's not my fault that the party of FDR and JFK is turning into the party of LOL and WTF, Maher said, mocking the left for doing everything from canceling Lincoln and Dr. Seuss, teaching children they're oppressors and math is racist, making Mr. Potato Head gender neutral, and now an emoji for pregnant men. I got it. Hold on. I need to fact check it. Hold on. It's fact check. True. Fact check true. I just looked it up. You heard it from Cooper. So that right there, that paragraph I just read, tell me that couldn't just be said on Cooper stuff. Tell me that couldn't be said on nearly any conservative Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire, any conservative platform. What Bill Maher is saying is exactly what we are saying. The authoritarian left in this country has gone absolutely mental. And a lot of Christians agree, but they're afraid to say something because they think, well, this is just sounding like I'm just being a meanie or this, or it's not really about that. Do you understand what this is going to mean for liberty if we don't say something about it? Bill Maher understands. Let's keep going. This is a quote from Bill Maher. It's not me who's changed. It's the left who is now made up of a small contingent who've gone mental and a large contingent who refuse to call them out for it. But I will, Maher said, noting that his willingness to speak truth to his own party had elevated him to a, quote, hero status on the right. It's kind of true, honestly. I agree. That's why I'm a hero at Fox these days, which shows just how much liberals have their heads up their booties. But he didn't say booty, because if they really thought about it, they would have made me a hero on their media, he added. That's true again. Yeah, but that can happen in this ridiculous new era of mind-numbing partisanship, where if I keep it real about the nonsense in the Democratic Party, it makes me an instant hero to Republicans. All right. It keeps going, but I won't read any more of the rest. That's fascinating to me, and it's absolutely true. Now, that takes us to the final point that I really want to talk about. I know I spent 30 minutes saying I'm going to get to this. All of this is kind of leading up to what I want to talk about, and I am going to read only one Bible verse from you later, but I am going to have a message for Christians. We need young people to understand this. We need these 18 to 49-year-olds to understand what is going on. We got to look at this Joe Rogan, Neil Young thing. If you don't know, obviously we made a joke about it earlier today because Cooper stuff is so funny. Joe Rogan, if you don't know who Joe Rogan is, then you are not at all paying attention to the podcasting world. Joe Rogan is getting roughly 11 million listens per episode on his podcast. He's the most famous podcaster in the world. Now, for those of you who don't know how much 11 million is, if I do quick math, like so Cooper stuff gets, if I was going to round off, Cooper stuff would get, say, 11 million less than that. How does that sound? That's quick math. Sorry, I'm not so good at the math. Basically, 11 million less than he's getting. 11 million. He's the biggest podcaster in the world. He is not he was a Bernie supporter. He wanted Bernie Sanders to win. He's just like, I like the guy, I like his policies. I think he tells the truth, yada, yada. This is not a conservative guy, all right? He's not a Christian. So if anybody thinks that what I'm saying is, I love everything Joe Rogan says, no, he says some really filthy things, okay? So I'm not saying that. Not even saying I certainly don't agree with all of his politics. But he's saying a lot of the same stuff that we are saying now. In fact, funny enough, one of the things that happens in the Christian woke crowd, they make fun of Cooper stuff, saying that I'm like Joe Rogan. And I think they are hurting me, but all that does is make me feel good. 11 million downloads. Maybe we'll reach 1 million this week. We're not gonna. Anyway, so Joe Rogan is willing to have people on his show. They talk about stuff, right? So a lot of times they'll have somebody come on his show. They might not even agree. They have a conversation about it. They argue back and forth. They agree on some things. He is willing to open up the space for people to come in and say, hey, here's what I think about the vaccine. Here's why I think it's dangerous. Here's why I think the mandates might be dangerous. Or usually it's more nuanced than that. Usually it's like, hey, we're not against the vaccine. There are some people that need it. People that are elderly, people with comorbidities, people maybe that are obese or they have diabetes. They list them off. Maybe they need it. Or maybe they need the booster, but I'm not so sure we should be giving boosters to 15-year-olds. That's the kind of stuff they have on there. Neil Young is a singer. He's a legacy act. You know, I don't even know how old he is. He's quite old at this point. The irony of this thing is that Neil Young comes out of the era of the anti-establishment. We're against the man. We're going to have a revolution. We're going to set people free. His iconic hit is Keep Rockin' in the Free World. Honestly, you can make this stuff up. A lot of people have been noting this. I've noted it a few times. I've always done it in a soft way, or I've tried to, because the thing is, as soon as I say it, everybody's going to go tweet it, and all these sites are going to come out and say that I'm hating on people. I'm not hating on them. It's just ironic that all of these acts from, the rock and roll revolution, we're sticking it to the man. Where are they now? Eric Clapton is the only one. I shouldn't say the only one, but one of the only ones, and he's virtually been canceled now. One of the only people that has come against these incredible authoritarian moves that are happening on the left, trying to force you to get an experimental vaccine, even now in a time where, as I said, the majority of people who have COVID have been vaccinated. It's absolutely insane. Where are all these people? Where are all those establishment people? So I'm going to get to that in 1 second. But basically, Neil Young is really upset about it. He wants Joe Rogan off, and he put an ultimatum. He said, okay, either Spotify takes my music off, or you have to get rid of Joe Rogan, because it's misinformation, it's disinformation. It's you can either get me or you can have Joe Rogan. So that was an easy decision. I would give it up for Spotify. I would be like, woo! But the truth is that money talks. It's like AC/DC saying, come on, love me for the money. It's true, it's a song. Listen to the money talk. Take that to the gym and then listen to Skillet mainly. Anyhow, money talks. So I do want to give it up for Spotify in a sense, but in the end, you know how much money they're making off of someone getting 11 million downloads per episode? It's like over 200 million a month. So in the end, I'm not dissing Spotify. I think it's great. Go for it. But in the end, there's no way they're going to choose Neil Young. I'm not bashing Neil Young. Rockin' the Free World is an awesome song. I'm not dissing him. It's just that nobody can compete with that. So there's no way they're going to lose that kind of. But they don't want woke cookies that bad. Now, maybe if Neil Young was bringing in similar amount of money, even if it was less, maybe it'd be different. I don't know. I don't know what level of woke cookies Spotify wants. But they are some of the only people not yanking Joe Rogan off. I'm sure that money has a lot to do with it, but either way, I'm glad they're doing it. So Spotify basically did not yank Joe Rogan off. Instead, they pushed Neil Young off. Now, here's the irony of the whole situation. And this is where some people are going to disagree with me. Good. Listen to what I got to say up in here, this piece. Here's the thing. If Neil Young wants people yanked off of social media for spreading disinformation, then I'm dead serious. Then why isn't he pulling the president of the United States off? Why are we going on YouTube and pulling off all of the clips of our president saying that this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated? That hasn't been true in a very, very long time. How come people are still being censored for saying things like natural immunity is stronger than vaccine immunity? It's that the CDC has finally said it. So when do we get an apology? You see what I'm saying? Has Neil Young called for people to be pulled down who have said there's no way that the lab leak theory was real? People were censored for saying that. People lost their livelihoods because they had reported information on that. Does Neil Young want them to be yanked down? What about people that still say, no, natural immunity, it's good, but you still got to get vaccinated? Why? We have the information and we have had it for months. Hello. What about that? What about all of the people saying it's completely safe? It's completely safe for kids to get double vaccinated and boosted when we have the information. I just read you what Sweden's doctors say. We've had this stuff for months, you guys. This isn't new information. We've had it for months. People saying, hey, everybody should read this information before you go get your kids vaccinated. You should read the information. The risk of being hospitalized for young boys from taking the vaccine is higher than the risk of them being hospitalized from COVID. That is medical fact. So when we talk about the science doesn't mean anything anymore. All that is, when they say the science, that's the same thing as them calling those truckers in Canada fascist. In other words, it doesn't mean anything. They're taking the definition. They're saying the opposite of what it is. All that the science is a political narrative that people want to use, and they use somebody that has like a credential. It's just credentialism, basically. If you have a credential, then it's whatever. We see this in Christianity all the time on all these woke Christian sites. And even the apostate articles that you see come out, the Christian apostates, they're always written by someone with an MDiv. Have you noticed that? A Master's of Divinity at theological school. So they must really know the Bible really well. They're just credentialed, but they're not even Christians anymore. You know what I'm saying? I shouldn't say Christians anymore. Maybe they never were Christians. I don't know. They do not claim historical Christianity anymore, but they got the credentials, so they must mean it. The science, it doesn't mean it. So Neil Young and all these old rockers that we thought were against the establishment, how come they're not calling for other people to be yanked off? This is what I want to get in to talk to, and this is the whole segment we're going to end this thing on here. Why is this happening? Why is so much COVID misinformation, disinformation, confusion, chaos? Why aren't they saying what they know to be true? I can tell you this. Joe Rogan has people on to talk about COVID. If you want to know what's going on with COVID, you can go listen to one of Joe Rogan's podcasts. And if you listen to 3 hours of him discussing, sometimes They disagree about stuff. Sometimes they go, we don't know, but we think this. I'll guarantee you, Neil Young, who I think probably doesn't really, he clearly has not read the literature. That's just it. Clearly doesn't understand what he's talking about. I will challenge him. Go listen to Joe Rogan. If you listen to Joe Rogan, you will know more about what's going on with COVID than if you listen to CNN and MSNBC and all these other news outlets and the Washington Post making fun of truckers who are fascists for trying to kill people's liberties by fighting for liberty. Allow myself to introduce myself. You'll know a lot more about what's going on. That is why more and more people are listening. That's why also the truth is going to come out about a lot of this stuff. I personally think a lot of truth is going to come out in 2022. I think we're going to find out that the doctor that I refer to as the science become flesh, we're going to be finding out some stuff happening up in here. Those old rockers, you see, the revolutionary rockers from the 60s and 70s, those rockers, not who they become, the old ones, they would have been holding Dr. Fauci's feet to the fire. Hello, they used to be against the man. They used to be against the establishment. They used to be against these institutions like Big Pharma, who are basically, oh my gosh, you guys, go to Ron Johnson's website. Ron Johnson is, he's in Congress for Wisconsin. And his website, he's got like a 4-hour presentation with all these doctors talking about COVID. Go listen to this. You're going to hear this on there. I've also heard it on Joe Rogan's podcast with Dr. McCullough. We've known this for months and months and months, but it's coming out more and more and more about how basically Big Pharma is pushing certain kinds of treatments like remdesivir and things like that. They're saying that they're pushing them on people who had COVID in hospitals because if patients die and they had remdesivir, there's a bonus to the people. In other words, the hospitals are going to get more money for giving that drug rather than giving something else. Look, do I know 100% that's true? No, I don't. We haven't seen it, but there's a lot of people reporting, a lot of whistleblowers reporting on this kind of thing. Even if it's not 100% true, those rockers, if it was 1960 and 70 again, they would be wanting to know what happened. Remember when they used to go against the military industrial complex? They were going against the man. They were going against authoritarianism. We just want to be free. What happened to those people? What happened to them? Howard Stern, the shock jock, is defending Neil Young. He's saying, no, I don't think Neil Young is against freedom of speech. I just think that what he's seeing is that this is literally killing people. And you can't have misinformation out there that's literally killing people. So he's not against free speech. You see, do you see what this is? They're clearly they're not listening. They're not reading the stuff, or else they're not understanding it. So what it comes down to, basically what I say is, Two points I want to make. The first one is this. Number one, those anti-establishment rockers, those people that were against authoritarianism and the man, they were never against authoritarianism. They were never truly anti-establishment, proven by the fact that they have now become the authoritarian establishment. They were against the hegemony. They were against the cultural powers that be. Basically, they were against the, how do you want to say it, pillars of this country, which were built on Christianity. That's the reason, Christians, that this is not a political, this isn't jumping into politics. This is jumping into an issue of morality. So now you have Howard Stern saying, no, it's immoral. Whatever. Let me just say this. Howard Stern's a really talented guy that is a pioneer in his field, done some genius work. But I will tell you, Howard Stern he says things that would make a sailor gag, okay? He says things that are so offensive. For instance, I can't listen to Howard Stern. I just find it too offensive. The language, it was so sexual, so sexually degrading to women. I think in recent years, he's come to semi-apologize about that, saying he's kind of changed and blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. But he had said stuff that was so absolutely degrading to women. I'm just letting you know, I am not about to let someone like that moralize to me. You know, it's like, these are the people that are moralizing to us. The people that have lived just absolute degenerate lifestyles. the things that he said, I mean, I'm not being rude to him. Don't hate him. Just saying, I'm not about to let these people begin to tell me what is moral. They have no compass for what is moral, except for their own wishes, which is why they don't see themselves as authoritarians. They never do. Guess who never does? We know who never does. They don't see themselves as authoritarians. They see themselves as the best of us. You see? They see themselves as the best. This is part of the number one thing that I want to say to you guys today. These people think that they are our moral betters. They don't actually want an area of debate and free speech. And let's go on Joe Rogan's podcast. I will tell you why Joe Rogan, why you're bad. Joe Rogan will tell you, no, this is why. They don't want that. They don't want the debate because they believe they are actually better. They believe they are actually more moral. That is exactly what all of these forms of technocracy and utopianism, that's all what this is. Thomas Sowell wrote a great book about it called The Anointed. What is this saying? The something of the Anointed. Can't remember what it's called right now. That's basically what he's saying. What they're saying is there are certain people that are more evolved. There are certain people that are more gifted to understand what morality is and how government should work. And if we just give them all of the power, they are going to lead us into a utopia. Now, that's what this technocracy is. It's this group of people. This is like the Great Reset and all these various forms of like a worldwide socialism that will lead us into this utopian vision. What that basically means is they are the best of us. They understand technology. They understand, quote, the science. They understand how we can solve the world by medical institutions and this and a world surveillance state. We can bring true equity because only we know who is clamping down on the liberty of everyone else. Like we saw in Canada, namely, it's Christians clamping down on people's liberty. It's those truckers clamping down on people's liberty. The surveillance state is going to know what to do. And if we give them all the power, they're going to lead us into utopia. That's what they don't see themselves as authoritarians. Yet they are. That is not what we Christians want, right? Even the post-millennial, meaning the Christian that believes in in terms of eschatology, which is just a big word for end time, all right? Your beliefs in end times, the big word for that is eschatology. Those who are post-millennial, meaning we believe that this earth is going to become the kingdom of God and the church is going to become the light of the world and we're going to see kind of a worldwide revival. And even people that believe that, the post-millennial crowd, they don't actually believe in authoritarianism, right? They don't believe in sort of like this, we're going to have dominion of the earth by the sword. They don't believe that. We don't believe in authoritarianism. The world is going to become Christian because we force them to adhere to the law of God. That is not what post-millennial people believe. The post-millennial Christian crowd, which I am a part of, by the way, that crowd, what we believe is that it is the gospel that wins people over. In other words, I don't want to clamp down on your voice to say, I don't think that God is real. I don't think that the Bible is nice. I don't think that Mary could truly have been a virgin. That doesn't make any sense. I believe in evolution. I believe that the world was created not by God, but by blah, blah, blah. I don't want to clamp down on your right to say that. Why? Because I believe that the Bible's ideas are better. I want to hear your ideas, and then I'm going to give you my ideas. And I believe, like this is my understanding of the post-millennial eschatology, I believe that my ideas are not my ideas. They are the Lord's ideas, okay? It is truth from the Word of God. So as we speak the truth of the Word of God, it is going to become convincing because it works. Oh, I got so excited. I knocked my microphone over because I love talking about the Lord Jesus Christ and His kingdom. The kingdom of God works. And so the more that people begin to see, oh, I see, you're saying if we have the Bible says, they always say that the traditional nuclear family, sort of like Black Lives Matter on their websites, that the traditional nuclear family is oppressing the world and we have to dismantle that. That's a part of the hegemony. That's what they mean. But actually, if you look at any social science, even the atheist social scientists, they will say the truth is having a mother and a father in their home just works. As it turns out, the dad brings something, the mom brings something, and you have a stable environment. Education is better. Those kids are less delinquent. They go to juvenile prison much, much less. They get in trouble less. They learn more. They end up becoming more successful. They're better for society. Why? Because the Bible works. And because anything outside of the Bible doesn't work. So this is the difference. Even the post-millennial Christian, crowd that sometimes people accuse us of wanting to be authoritarian. We're to get into politics and force people to bow their knee to Jesus Christ. No, we're not. I want to have an open market of ideas. I want you to share your ideas, and I'm going to share my ideas. And what you're going to find is that the Bible works. So what I got to say for anybody that's been out there saying, how come there weren't more of those old rockers standing up and fighting against authoritarianism? I thought they were against the man. They're not against authoritarianism. They want to be the authoritarians, right? They're not against the establishment. They were against that establishment. They are not philosophically against there being an establishment. And now that they have the power, and now that every single institution in America, we're talking about academia. Now we're talking about K through 12. We're talking about politics. We're talking about big tech, who is joined at the hip, big media. They're all joined together with this utopian vision, which I believe is more of a technocracy, which we've already defined. They're all joined together for that. And what they actually believe is this: you should not be able to say what you are saying because you're wrong. You're just too dumb to know that you're wrong. So in order to save you, we are going to infringe upon your liberties. We're going to shut you up. We're going to deplatform you. We're going to demonetize you. We're going to pump you full of whatever drug that we want to pump you full of. And you're going to do what we do, but it's for your benefit. Basically, they are Ultron or Thanos. Take your pick. You see, that's what they are. They're saying, you don't know that you are not free. You're slaves to the Christian hegemony, to the American hegemony, to the whiteness hegemony. We're going to free you from that by making you do everything that we do. And it's not going to be slavery. That is going to be freedom, because we are the anointed. Thomas Sowell's book was called Vision of the Anointed. Sorry, I couldn't remember the name of it. That's a great book. Check it out. Last thing I want to say about this. Why are they doing all this stuff with COVID? How come they can't read the same stuff that we read and have a brain? Here's the deal. There's a couple of reasons why. Number one, are they dumb? Number two, are they delusional? Number three, are they diabolical? Do you see what I did there? It's called alliteration. Look it up. That's what songwriters do. You know it. It's alliteration. Are they dumb? Are they delusional? Or are they diabolical? I don't know the answer. I'm sure it's a mix. Now, I want to say this about being dumb. Let me define what I mean there. I'm not just going around saying they're all stupid, and that's not what I mean. Okay? Here's the thing. You don't have to be an intellectual to not be dumb. Okay? You don't have to have gone to college and academia, and that's not what I'm talking about. And I think Joe Rogan is a great example of this. And I sure hope everybody hears what I'm saying. Joe Rogan is not an intellectual, and that is not slamming him. I'm certainly not an intellectual. I think Joe Rogan's very, very smart. He's not what you would call an academic, all right? He is not Jordan Peterson, okay? And he's not supposed to be. He's very, very smart. He has a lot of common sense. He reads a lot. He thinks a lot. He knows how to think about issues. It doesn't mean that I agree with Joe Rogan all the time. To tell you the truth, I haven't even listened to Joe Rogan much. His podcasts are like 3 or 4 hours long, and I don't have the time. But I've listened to lots of clips, and this. I agree with some. I don't agree with some. But I find it an interesting conversation. He brings up great points. It's called critical thinking. A lot of these people, maybe they're that are against it, maybe they're just dumb. Meaning maybe they just have no wisdom. In fact, they may even be intellectual. This is why I'm sparsing it out this way. They could be 1 billion times smarter than me. They could be 1 billion times smarter than Joe Rogan, but they just have no wisdom. Do you see what I'm saying? Those are different things. I want to read this scripture from you here before I keep moving on. Psalm 19. Check this out. Starting in verse 1, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they reveal knowledge. Without speech or language, without a sound to be heard, their voice has gone out into all the earth, their words to the end of the world. Now, this is amazing. This is just verse 1 through 4. Go check it out. This is amazing. This goes in together with what I was saying last week. Remember, I was reading last week in Romans 1. Remember this? When it says basically that mankind has suppressed the truth of God. The truth should be known to us. It should be visible. His attributes should be visible in the world that we see. Remember me saying that. You look at the sky, you look at the ocean, you look at the way the world runs, the order that is happening in the universe. That should be obvious to all. But we've suppressed the truth. That's kind of similar to what this is saying. The heavens declare the glory of God. Night after night, they reveal knowledge. It should be seen as it is. I want to tell you what I think part of what this passage of Scripture means. This should be encouraging to all of you out there that are like me, that I'm not dumb, but I am not, in quote, an intellectual, okay? I'm not an academic. Doesn't mean that we can't be wise. It doesn't mean that we can't be prudent. It doesn't mean that we can't make better decisions in life for ourselves, for our families, even for the collective, than the hyper-intelligent people who deny the truth of Christ. Oh, now we are getting into it. Not all Christians agree with this exactly, and I don't really know why, because I just think it's so evidently true, but that's okay. So maybe you don't. Maybe I'll try to convince you very quickly. What I think part of this is saying is this. If you don't have a humility in looking at the world and the way that the world is run, that the way there's so much order, the sun comes up, the sun comes down, the moon gives light to the night. All these various things of the way the universe is ordered, right? We all know all the science things. I'm not going to say it because all of them, but just for instance, the fact that the earth is exactly where it must be so that we don't burn up from the sun or that we don't freeze it. All these various things. There is a certain knowledge that comes forth from that because you have a humility in understanding your place in the world. I understand my place in the world from a place of humility that I am the creature. I am not the creator. It is not all up to me. I am a part of a world that I'm looking at. It is fascinating. It is daunting. It brings a certain sort of righteous fear. You see what I'm saying? When we talk about fear of God and things like that, it brings a righteous fear of a fear of this humility of I am really, really small. There must be something great and awesome happening. Now, also what we learn, especially in Reformed theology, is that all knowledge and all truth is wrapped up in the person of Jesus Christ. So if you really want to see the world the way it actually is, the Bible, I believe, teaches us that knowledge, the foundation of that knowledge is Jesus Christ. So if you ignore Jesus Christ, you ignore God's invisible attributes that should be evident to us with your eyes, with the world that you see. If you ignore that, then your view of truth is going to get skewed. But if you don't ignore that, that's me and you. If you don't ignore that, if you recognize it, and it brings a humility to your heart and a fear of God to your heart, then all of a sudden, even if you are not an academic, even if you are not an intellectual, God is going to begin to bring wisdom to you. You see what I'm saying? You are going to become wise, and all of a sudden you're going to find out that there are people that you might go, that person's way, way smarter than me. But then later you're going to be like, if they're so smart, how come their decision making is so dumb? That's part of what's going to happen. Let's move down to verse 7. The law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. The testimony of the Lord is trustworthy, making wise the simple. Woo! Come on now. Making wise the simple. Now we see in the book of Proverbs all the time, there's this word simpleton. It is not a good word. You do not want to be a simpleton, okay? Being a simpleton is not just somebody that's just like, they just don't know a lot of stuff. Being a simpleton is someone with a complete lack of prudence, okay? It's not just someone that might not be educated, right? Or maybe there's someone that even if they were educated, they're not the sharpest tool in the shed kind of a thing. Being a simpleton is someone with such a lack of prudence that they don't even care about prudence. They don't even care. They're just lazy, like, oh, whatever happens, happens, but I don't even really care. They have no knowledge of God whatsoever. The book of Proverbs speaks very, very harshly against those kinds of people. How many of you know this? There are a lot of intellectual people in our society that act like simpletons. That's what this is saying. Let's go back to it. The testimony of the Lord is trustworthy, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, bringing joy to the heart. The commandments of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true, being altogether righteous. I'm going to stop there. What I really want to say is this. The testimony of the Lord is trustworthy. His law is perfect. What does that mean? It means when you think about the law of God and you meditate on the law of God and you say, God, I don't want to do whatever I feel. I don't want to do what I think is right. I want to do what you think is right. As you begin to study God's precepts, if you are a simple person, God is going to take you from a simple person to becoming a wise person. That is a promise from God in the Bible. That's good news for those of us who don't consider ourselves to be intellectual. Some of you watching might consider yourselves to be a lot less intellectual than me. This is good news for all of us. I'm telling you, you can become a wise person. When I look at these people and how insane they're being about COVID and everything else, are they just dumb? I'm not saying they're not intellectual. I'm not saying that their ACT scores aren't skyrocketed compared to mine. Some people say, John, you sound intellectual to me. I'm not intellectual. I just read a lot, but I love the Word of God. And He has made me into a much wiser, more prudent person than I was 10 years ago. That is because of the Word of God. That's not because of me, all right? You're looking at a guy that could barely get into college. You had to score a 20 to get into the college I went to. I barely got in, all right? I'm not an idiot, but I'm not an intellectual. God will do the same thing for you if you love His Word. I got to finish because we're so long. I said, are they dumb? I don't know. I think they're not building their lives on the truth of Jesus. I think they must not have a humility to understand where the world is at because they clearly can't read information. They can't read the information and understand it. They can't process it. Or are they delusional? I've said this on my podcast several times. Yes, I think a lot of people that are typically smart, typically intellectual, typically can critically think, have literally lost their minds. There's two ways you believe that in theology. You can believe that God has allowed them to lose their minds, or you can believe like I do, which I will admit is a little bit of a strong Calvinist position, which says God has caused them to lose their minds. I believe the latter, and that is based on the fact that God did the same thing to Nebuchadnezzar, and this is based on the fact that God sent evil spirits into Saul to drive him crazy. I don't understand the theology. That's what I read in the Bible. You can believe whatever you want to. It doesn't really matter, all right? The point is they have been driven crazy and they have become delusional. They can't read the stuff. And they don't even understand that they're become authoritarians, but they have. The last one that I said is, are they diabolical? Look, I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you this. I'm not going to name names. Yes, there are people who are diabolical. I'm not saying that Neil Young's diabolical. I don't believe that. There are people who are diabolical. I believe that with all my heart. I believe there are people. Here's the thing, see, Christians, but now we're sounding too mean, John. You don't want to be mean. You got to be nice. Care Bears, share. Here's what I would say to you, brother and sister, that feels that way about Cooper stuff, or what I'm saying right now, that there are people who are diabolical. I don't think that you've understood. I got to say it more nicely than that. I would challenge you to go back and to read the Bible, to read about the diabolical nature of tyrants, to read about the diabolical nature of authoritarians who saw themselves as gods. We're talking about Pharaoh. Go back and read about it. You're talking about a man who thought he could take Yahweh on, right? You're talking about a man who actually believed, all right, God is turning all the water to blood. God is raining locusts down on all of our people. God is sending a plague through where He's killing firstborns. I'm pretty sure I can take him. You said that's what Pharaoh's saying. I'm pretty sure I can go up against him. I can do it. You're talking about people who actually are diabolical. You are talking about people who actually do want to limit your freedom because they do not want you to be free. You're talking about people who actually believe in their hearts they have a grandiose vision for humankind that is a satanic vision. It just is. I'm not saying they're all like that, and I'm not naming names. Those people are out there. And I believe it is the job of the church to be a prophetic witness to those people, to the governments, to those institutional people, to the science, claiming that everything they want to see happen in life must be credentialed under the science, even though they're most of the time been lying to us. We have to be a prophetic witness to them that what they are saying is actually lies, because Jesus Christ is the truth. That means that all truth and all knowledge is wrapped up in the person of Jesus Christ. And if our authoritarians in charge keep lying to us over and over and over and over, is it not our responsibility to say that is not the truth? It's not just the truth of when you die, Jesus died for you. When you die, you have a decision to make whether you're going to serve Jesus or serve yourself, which means life or death, which means heaven or hell in eternity. That, of course, is the most important thing. But there's a lot more truth to be talked about than just what happens when you die. They are lying to us, and the church has to be a prophetic witness to love the truth and to love liberty. Hope you had enjoyed Cooper's stuff. See you next week.
Read the Bible.
Cooper stuff! I'm in the game!